morning, everybody. I am a transport engineer and I do a lot of projects where I need to think about planning and design. I also prepare a lot of guidance, as Glenn just mentioned. So for a long time, I've been thinking about how can we actually improve our guidance to look at it for a gender lens. Now, Nikki's done a brilliant job of setting the scene about why considering females is really important. And the research that she's doing is going to be so invaluable to actually add the recommendations into what we do as practitioners, because at the moment, we got some gut instinct about what we need to do, but we actually are going to really value that research. But I'd just like to point out that there are probably also other people doing research around the needs of non-binary people. So when we talk about gender, we're not just talking about female. But I haven't seen any of that, so if anyone is aware of any research in that area, I'd be really grateful to find out about that. The other thing Nikki pointed out, which is so true, is that often our transport network, our older built environment, was built a long time ago, predominantly by male traffic engineers. You don't meet many retired female traffic engineers. And there was no such thing as healthy streets frameworks back then. There was no such thing as movement in place. It was all about movement, and that was movement of vehicles, not movement of people. So we're getting there. There's an example there of an improving a roundabout near a school in St Martin's for, you can see a mother there taking her children to school. That roundabout is getting better. Maybe priority crossings might be the way we go eventually with roundabouts, but at the moment, at least they're getting some speed reduction there. That other example of that particularly grainy photo, that is actually from Street View. This is an intersection in Dunedin where it captures a older lady walking along the road with her shopping, and that crossing distance is 16 metres. What the heck? But it's a very common scene all around New Zealand. Side road intersections which have really high speed turns, the radiuses are too big, you can't get a decent tactile layout on the ground. So I was thinking the other day that what I'd love to do with the last 10 years or so of my career is to be part of a special task force called Let's Get Shit Done, to quote Meg, and not to mock Let's Get Wellington Movington, but let's get shit done. That would be a task force that would go around New Zealand and fix all these side roads, fill in missing footpath links, sort out crossings. So Alan and Nick, maybe you could put that in as a recommendation in the National Walking Plan and say there are ready people here waiting to make it happen. I'm just going to quickly run through a bit of a resource that one of my colleagues pointed out to me. So this is a website that was developed in the UK called Get It. It's very easy to find if you Google it. It's essentially a gender toolkit, and there's a lot of gender equity toolkits out there for different industries, but this is a transport-specific one, which I thought was really helpful. In the toolkit list there, I'm just going to run through 3 of those, not all of them, because we don't have time today. Education and awareness. Now, this is really important, and in my career, I would say, looking back 10 years ago, if you went to a conference and anyone mentioned women as a particular user of the system, you'd be just like, what the heck, it just wouldn't be thought of. But I think back to 2019, Celia, when you did that great presentation at the Transport Group conference, and that was kind of when things started to pick up momentum around recognising that women are different in the system. Courses that I've been running, conferences that I go to, it's all part of the dialogue now. It's just becoming normal. That LinkedIn post there, which I saw a few years ago, was just absolute cracker. This is a gentleman recognising that he was out on a site visit with a female colleague and she saw things completely different to him. So if it had been 2 guys out there, they may have actually missed a lot of what she saw. So at the moment, our awareness is quite good in terms of diversity, particularly around mobility impaired. I really like this graphic from AT's Accessibility Action Plan. It actually shows a pregnant woman, which we might not have seen a few years ago. But I guess with a lot of these images, they are showing people that have physical impediments. You don't see just a normal woman. And that's, again, Nikki's research and other research is going to feed into these plans as well, because at the moment we know a lot about the needs of mobility impaired, and that's all through our guidance. Unfortunately, it's not often translated into reality, which is sad. We're also really aware of crime prevention through environmental design, things that we need to think about for personal security. And this is particularly pertinent for women, as Nikki pointed out in all her different interviews that she undertook. We have great stuff around when you're setting up subdivisions, what have you, don't repeat those horrendous alleyways we see in our older street network. And fences, you know, it's not just the street design, it's actually what's next to the street. And Selwyn have quite a good fence design guidance there for people. And a lot of these things are also embedded now in our district plans. So really just a couple of quick actions there. We need to provide more context for people so they understand gender differences, and we need some specific guidance on specific matters. Let's raise awareness through these types of forums. Educate your peers. We recently ran a lunch and learn on International Women's Day, and I talked to them about designing access ways, thinking about how to cater for women, etc. And just a bit of a project tip, and this is often what I tell my younger colleagues, is when you're looking at a project, don't just put in the budget to go out and do an AM and PM peak visit, because that's when all the traffic's there. Go out during other times of the day and you'll see things that might surprise you. Empowering the industry. So we need women in all places to make sure decisions are being made. This was some information that Women in Urbanism put together a few years ago, and you can see in all sectors we're really low there, and it's great to see, you know, likes of Sarah boosting up those numbers. But let's just have a look at transport. So 25% of transport professionals are women. But actually, it's really important that that number needs to go up. And obviously that's because of our proportion of the population, but also all those things that people have already talked about today. Women are more likely to walk or bus, make care-related trips at off-peak times, make short trips and multi-leg journeys. So the more women we have in our industry, the more we may be able to relate to those things. Just some actions here. We need more women in all of our industries, not just transport, architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, and our elected members. So when you're setting up your project teams, have a think about adding some diversity to the team. I've often pointed out, and when I see a team that's all men, maybe you need to add some females into the team. Interestingly, I've been in a few project teams where it's been all women, and we have a startup meeting and we're like, should we actually have a male in here? And then we're like, nah, we're fine. And when you're going out doing your safety audits or reviews, make sure you have some diversity as well, particularly in the urban context. I'm rattling through this to make up for Rolly's presentation, which was riveting but long. This is the last slide. So progressive policy. So even though we are talking about planning and design, actually the policy above that is really important as well. Vienna is held up as a bit of a, role model in this area. And as Glenn said, I'm about to go on holiday and I'm lucky enough going to Vienna. So I'm going to have a really good smooch around there and see if I can actually see from experiencing the walking environment that they're actually translating that on the ground. My travelling companion has got used to my transport-related detours, so that's going to be good for her to learn a bit more about that, and it's actually really great that we're both women because we can both have a look. Excellent, and thank you very much for listening, and keep up the great work, Nikki and others doing research in this area, because we really need it to boost up our guidance. Thank you.